This is a Let's Talk Church Safety and Security microsode with your host, Paul Buckner. Hey sheepdogs, I wanted to record a quick video. It's been a minute, a lot of things going on with the Academy. We're about a week as of the recording of this video from graduation, but got some windshield time in today, headed to class, and I was really thinking about something an instructor said yesterday that I'm kind of codifying my own phrase for it, but it really resonated with me. We were doing room clearing and talking about all the things that went with it, and in the course of doing so, he was talking about one of the things that happens when people use blue guns and different things like that in practice you're running through with your finger Glock is you can accidentally train yourself to respond exactly that way in an emergency. And let me explain what he means. So he was talking about the fact that they had a couple of very high-speed members of a local SWAT team that they were working with that have been there and done that. They've actually had to do raids and different things like that. And in the course of that, they know their stuff. And he was talking about when they converted from running just blue guns to running trainers in the form of weapons set up to run simunitions, that as one of the SWAT team members that, again, was very high speed, came around the corner, he said bang, 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 as he pulled the trigger on the trainer and was firing the simunitions at the role player, another police officer in this case. And that really got me thinking, because he's like, we can end up with training scars, which makes a lot of sense. It's something I've talked about for years, and it's something I'm very careful about in my own life, is not to do things that cause training scars. And so what they were finding was that there were people that would come around the corner with their finger indexed up onto the slide, or at least onto the frame, and when they were engaging, they were saying bang, 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 instead of trying to pull the trigger on the blue gun, which again is just, if you've never held one, it's an inert piece it's somewhere between rubber and plastic, and it's very hard. There's no give in it, and you train to keep your finger off of the trigger until it's go time, and you have something in front of you that you need to destroy. And that really got me thinking, because there's any number of other training scars that we can end up with. If you're training to do some kind of a knife disarm, I literally met an officer that handed a knife back to a dangerous individual. The guy came at him with a knife, and if I remember the details of the story, he said it was in like the late 70s or early 80s, and they'd been training like on Aikido style knife defense, and law enforcement has shifted that focus since, but that's where they were. The guy lunged at him with a knife, he disarmed the guy, and then without thinking, because every time they finished the drill, he turned the knife around, hilt first, handle first, and handed it back to the bad guy the way that he would of another role player, another police officer that he was training with. And so one of the instructors that I work with, Matt Combs with Shield Force International, he has you throw the rubber knife on the ground just because of that, onto the floor, just because of that, because you don't want to develop a training scar. If you've got to pick something bad, pick that one. So that's a thing. And then you also have other things like dry fire practice. Doing dry fire practice in and of itself, phenomenal, but if you're having to rack the slide every time, you can end up in a situation where by racking the slide, you can actually do that under stress. And I know that sounds crazy, but they've actually had young police officers fresh out of the academy where they've really instituted lots and lots of dry fire, because they've actually found where, and I've seen this where it's happened a couple of times, you end up with someone who they go for their weapon, it's a justified shoot, they put rounds down range, and then after the shooting is over, they realize that they fired, for every round that they fired, there's a round on the ground, because they fired, reset the slide, which ejected a live round onto the ground, and they did that again and again and again during the shoot. So it's just something to think about when it comes to training, is the more realism, obviously, the better, and we don't want to develop scars in our training that can actually hurt us out there in the field. And if you're looking for a way to do dry fire practice in a safe way, I was blessed to have the opportunity to do an interview a few years ago when I was still with the church safety guys, talking to the founder of Dry Fire Mag, dryfiremag.com, and I actually have my Dry Fire magazine loaned out. I got one for a Glock 17, so it'll fit a 17 or a 19, or a obviously a 26, whatever. But that is a phenomenal way to get around developing a dry fire scar, because last thing we want to do is be dropping good ammunition onto the ground, and any kind of a training scar we develop like that can cost us our life. So as always, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. Remember, Semper Disciplina, that lifestyle of discipline training. God bless. If you enjoyed this microsode, check out the video and audio versions of the Let's Talk Church Safety and Security podcast.